All right, everybody, welcome back to my NBA Restart Preview series. Last episode, we did the punching bag teams, which included the San Antonio Spurs, the Phoenix Suns, and the Washington Wizards. Basically, those are the teams that I just think are there to pretty much get pushed around and complete the schedule. I don't see them doing anything. And with these fringe playoff teams, I see them being exciting teams that could possibly make the playoffs. The Magic and Nets are pretty much locks at this point, but I can see them making the playoffs, but once they get there, they're going to lose in 4 or 5 games. So, yeah, but let's talk about these teams because there are some very exciting young teams in here and also some withered husks. Specifically the Brooklyn Nets, who just do not look like they're ready to play. But yeah, let's start it off with the Sacramento Kings. Let's start off by talking about Marvin Bagley, who last year I honestly thought was pretty promising. Sure, he got overshadowed by Luka Doncic, Trae Young, even DeAndre Ayton, but I honestly think he has a nice future in the league. But this season, he's only played 13 games the whole year, averaging like 14.2 points per game and a decent amount of rebounds. But honestly, those stats don't really mean much in such a small sample size this season. And we've heard he's ready to go in Orlando and he can go and play. But I don't know what the expectation for him will necessarily be. So yeah, that's just a little disclaimer before we get into the depth chart and all of that stuff. So here we have the Kings depth chart, and it's been moving around a lot this season. It's honestly not been very, very consistent at all. There's a lot of questions about their head coach, Luke Walton. I always thought, during the whole stretch with the Warriors when they started off the season, 28-0? I just never thought it was necessarily him that was doing it, because the thing was that he was using Steve Kerr's system, so I knew whenever we were winning, it wasn't all his doing or anything like that. But whatever. Let's take a look at the depth chart. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox, he's got a great career ahead of him. I think he's a great player. Bogdan Bogdanovic, he's got his contract year coming up, or at least like team option. I'm not sure what he's got coming up, but this is he definitely has something to prove. Harrison Barnes was just re-signed last offseason. He's okay. He's Harrison Barnes. Nemanja Bjelica, I honestly really like Bjelica. He's really good for stretching the floor and all that. And Richaun Holmes has been like a really solid center this year for the Kings. They've got Corey Joseph off the bench, a very serviceable backup point guard. But now here's the thing. You've got Buddy Hield coming off the bench. Yeah, he's coming off the bench. And this is something that I just don't understand here from Luke Walton. Buddy Hield should be like part of that core, but he's coming off the bench here. Then you've got Kent Bazemore, who came over from the Blazers. I mean, sure, he's a good bench player. Jabari Parker is here. He's doing okay. I mean, he's going to be a role player for the rest of his career, which is honestly really sad. Those 2 ACL injuries really set him back. Harry Giles, I guess we're still waiting on him. Not really sure about him yet. And I've also signed Corey Brewer during the transaction period. And I don't know how much Corey Brewer is going to help this team, but it's something to think about, I guess. And although the Sacramento Kings were very close to making the playoffs last year, they were the 9th seed, I believe, this year, they're not really the same team, yet they might have a better chance. They're 19th in offensive rating, 18th in defensive rating, 16th in the bench plus or minus, and their schedule's not too bad, 17th on strength of schedule. So they've got a chance for sure at making it to a play-in game against whoever's in the 8th seed, I guess. But they do have some huge games in their schedules. And the thing is that their offensive philosophy is so much different this year. Last year was all about playing quickly and getting points where they could find them, getting them quickly. But this year it's just been different. It's been more half-court offense, and that's why I'm kind of skeptical about Luke Walton and his fit for this team. So the Kings are going to start off playing against the San Antonio Spurs. I have them winning that one, but we'll see. That could go either way, potentially. Then against the Magic, I also have them winning that one. I just think the Kings will be more hungry to win it, but the Magic could win it. And you've got the Mavericks. I have the Mavericks winning that game. Then the Pelicans. I have them winning this one, but they play 2 games against the Pelicans. I have them losing the second of the 2 meetings. And then I'm going to have them beat the Nets. And then I'm going to have them lose to the Rockets. And then I have them beating the Lakers on the last game. Because I'm banking on the Lakers clinching that 1 seed and resting at that point. So we'll see. I have them going 5-3, but they could win 2 to 6 games or so. I think that's not too much of a stretch. Yeah, so we could that should be pretty good, honestly. That's a pretty good go at things. And now we're going to move on to the next team, which is the New Orleans Pelicans. As of the time I'm recording this video, there's nothing that says that any Pelicans players are sitting out of Orlando. So I'm just going to go with the assumption that they're all playing. So let's go right into the depth chart. You've got Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Derek Favors. This is a great starting 5. One of the most talented of these fringe playoff teams for sure. Could be the most talented, actually. But yeah, this is a really great starting 5, and that's the reason why a lot of people have the Pelicans eventually making the playoffs. Then off the bench, you have Frank Jackson, who's a pretty good backup point guard. JJ Redick, we know what he does. He shoots, and he shoots really well. Then you've got Josh Hart. Josh Hart's been good, of course. He's a 2-way player, you know. He's been a role player this year for the Pelicans. He does what he's supposed to do, I guess. Kenrich Williams. He's cool, I guess. He's all right. There's not too much to say about Kenrich Williams. And then you've got Jackson Hayes off the bench, who is a bit of a wild card, but he's athletic, and he's a little raw as a prospect, but it's cool, and he could definitely work out. They've also got Neil Alexander-Walker off the bench, who has had a pretty decent rookie season. He's shown those flashes as well. So has Jackson Hayes. But yeah, let's move on to their strengths and weaknesses and all that. As far as their offensive and defensive ratings, they're not anything special, 15th and 20th respectively. They have the 24th best bench, and this is the great part, they have the easiest schedule remaining. A lot of people say the NBA rigged it for them. Did they? I don't know, because the Pelicans did have the easiest schedule going into the bubble. And you know what? I'm willing to give the NBA the benefit of the doubt, but they probably did, give the Pelicans a little favor, you know what I'm saying? But it's not like they're gonna go 8-0 in this schedule. It's definitely not that way. So taking a look at their schedule, as you can see, I'm giving them a 6-2 record. But the thing is that these are a lot of games that I could see going either way. That's why their win range is 2 to 7. So you've got the Jazz. That's not a win. That's not an easy win. Then you've got the Grizzlies. That's not an easy win at all. The Kings. That doesn't automatically mean a loss either. And the Spurs. Who knows what the Spurs are doing at that point? Then you got the Kings again. Again, not an easy win. And then the Magic. Again, not necessarily a gimme game. So it's like, sure, they have an easy schedule comparatively to other teams, but it's not an easy schedule that they're going to go 8-0. But either way, I have them going 6-2 in this and a win range of 2-7. Let's move on and talk about the Portland Trailblazers. So the Blazers are getting a lot of people back, but they are going to be losing Trevor Ariza, who, he's a 3-and-D player at this point in his career. Not anything too crazy. Definitely not the same guy who was on the Rockets. He's not that caliber of player anymore, but still very, very valuable to a team. So this is going to hurt them a little bit. I believe they traded for him mid-season from the Kings. So, he's not going to be in Orlando. So right here, you've got Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, of course, and Carmelo Anthony's going to start. And then you've got Zach Collins and Yusuf Nurkic coming back from their injuries. I don't know if Whiteside or Nurkic is going to start, but I put Nurkic in there for now. And you've got Anthony Simons off the bench, who I'm honestly a huge fan of. Gary Trent Jr., serviceable player. Mario Hezonja, just about bearable. And Nasir Little, who's a rookie. We don't really know too much about him. He's doing all right this season, I guess. And Hassan Whiteside's actually had a nice career resurgence. And I think Terry Stotts, personally, he's a pretty good coach. For the quality of team he has, where he's got Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and then a bunch of role players for the most part. Nurkic can be an all-star caliber player, but I think he does a good job with what he has. This team is basically all offense and not much defense, so they're also not the greatest bench, 28th in bench plus or minus. 10th in offensive rating is pretty impressive, but yeah, they're not going to really be stopping anyone. And then strength of schedule, they've got to be feeling a bit screwed because they had the third easiest schedule left before the NBA suspended operations, and now they have the fifth toughest schedule. So, it's definitely tough for the Portland Trailblazers, and it's going to be a rough road to get to the playoffs, but let's take a look at their schedule. So, they're going to start off taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, who are currently the 8th seed and the team that everyone in the West seems to be chasing. But I'm going to give them an L there. Memphis leads the season series 1-0. Then against Boston, I'm going to give them an L there too, with Boston leading the season series. And then Portland against Houston, I'm going to give them an L just because I think Houston's the better team. But I wouldn't be surprised if Portland is able to pull off the upset. Then against Denver, Denver's going to be on the second game of a back-to-back, so I'm going to give it to Portland. Then against the Clippers, I'm going to give them an L. Against the Sixers, I'm going to give them an L, but they could win. Against Dallas, I'm going to give them a W, but it's mainly because it's, end of the season, so a lot of playoff teams could just be readying up for the playoffs, and I have them beating the Brooklyn Nets. So 3-5 is my prediction, but they could win 1 to 6 games. So let's take a look at the Orlando Magic, starting off with their depth chart. They're not really missing anyone too major. They've been missing Jonathan Isaac the whole season, so nothing shocking here. Point guard, Markelle Fultz, he's taken the starting role this season from DJ Augustine. Then you've got Evan Fournier, who's one of their better offensive players. James Ennis III, who they traded for mid-season. Aaron Gordon, who I still like him because he's from the Bay Area, but I don't know if he's really lived up to what he can be. Nikola Vucevic, who's not an all-star this year, but he was last year and is still the same sort of player. DJ Augustine, now coming off the bench. Terrence Ross is a really great role player. Wes Iwundu has taken a prominent role off the bench here, so has Gary Clark, and then Mo Bamba actually getting some playing time this season. And their coach is Steve Clifford, who is definitely a defensive-minded guy. This is a very defensive-minded team, 10th in defensive rating, only 24th in offensive rating. Their bench is all right. middle of the pack, 15th in bench plus or minus, and they don't have a very tough schedule. So they could definitely move up to like the 7th seed in the East at the end of this. Or will they? Let's find out when we take a look at their schedule. So the Magic start off with taking on the Brooklyn Nets. I'm going to give them a win in that one. Brooklyn, they've got a lot of new pieces with having to add a lot of people because a lot of their team dropped out of Orlando. So yeah, I'm going to give them a win there. Then taking on the Kings, I'm going to give them a loss. Against the Pacers, I'm going to give them a loss. Against Toronto, I'm going to give them a loss. Against Philly, I might give them a win here, maybe, but I could also see this being a loss. Against Boston, I'm going to give them a loss. Against Brooklyn, I'm going to give them a win. And then against New Orleans, I'm going to give them another loss. So I have them going about 3-5, maybe 2-6. Win range 1-5. You know, I could see them winning 5 games here. Not very likely, but yeah. Let's move on to the Brooklyn Nets. So the Nets are missing Wilson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan. They're also missing Spencer Dinwiddie, who I think is the biggest loss. They're also missing Taurean Prince. And, of course, they're missing Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. But those two, well, Kevin Durant hasn't played all year, and Kyrie has only played a few games, 15 or something like that. So, yeah, they are missing a lot of people. So let's take a look at this depth chart then, and as you can see, it's very, very decimated. Right now, they've got Chris Chiozza starting at point guard. Maybe Tyler Johnson will start. But you've also got Joe Harris, Karis LeVert. Those are normal starters. And you've also got Jarrett Allen, who's also a normal starter. Now, Rodions Kurucs is going to start. He's a starting caliber player anyways, so not a huge drop-off there. Off the bench, Tyler Johnson, who they just signed. David Nwaba, who they just signed, Garrett Temple, who they just signed, Jamal Crawford, who they just signed, and then Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, who's been okay this year, and then Justin Anderson, who they just signed. So that is a lot of new pieces. And then the coach is Jacques Vaughn, who has only been here for less than half the season when they fired Kenny Atkinson, which, by the way, I don't know how I feel about that. The Nets are losing the things that made them such an endearing team last year, but that's for a different video at this point. Let's move on and talk about their strengths and weaknesses. So I didn't realize this before I actually went to go look this up, but the Nets are actually a very sound defensive team. They're 8th in defensive rating. Not a great offensive team, only 22nd. And they also come in 22nd in bench plus or minus. But not a very hard schedule. But the fact that they're probably one of the worst teams in Orlando, 19th strength of schedule, yeah, that hurts. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh. But at the same time, I feel like I'm not. I have this team going 0-8. Yeah, but here's the thing. They are still probably going to make the playoffs because the Wizards aren't really going to win too many games either, maybe. And, you know, maybe I am being a little too harsh, but I just don't see many games here where I can say, oh, that's a straight-up win. That's why I have them going 0-8 right now. And they could win 2, they could win 1. I don't think 3 or 4, but yeah, 0-8. I don't feel great about this team. It doesn't seem like they're going to be that motivated. They don't really have anything to gain by being in Orlando. They're just kind of there to make up the schedule, but they're not necessarily a punching bag since they're going to make the playoffs. The bottom of the East really, really gets bad really, really fast. Better luck next year, Nets. And now the Memphis Grizzlies, who are currently number 8 in the West. And as much as the NBA may be helping out the Pelicans or whatever, the ball really is in Memphis's court. Even if it does go into a play-in game, Memphis just has to win 1 game, while that 9 seed has to win 2 games. So the name of the game here for the Grizzlies is to stay in the 8th seed. If they can't stay in the 8th seed, it's going to get ugly. But I honestly think they can. or at least I think they can. I'm not sure. We're going to see when I do the predictions, but this is a pretty solid team. You've got John Morant, of course, Dylan Brooks, Slow-Mo Kyle Anderson, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Jonas Valanciunas. That is honestly a really good starting lineup. Then you've got Tyus Jones off the bench, DeAnthony Melton, who for whatever reason has actually done really well this year, Justice Winslow, who has been traded over in the Iggy trade, Brandon Clark off the bench. I really like Brandon Clark as a young player. And you've also got Gorgie Zhang, who they got from the Timberwolves. He's okay, I guess. But yeah, this is a capable team. And Taylor Jenkins, even though like he's not really a guy who I could really picture his face or anything like that, or anything even, I don't know much about him at all. But he's put this team in a position to win games, and that is commendable. The Grizzlies end up pretty much middle of the pack in most of these. 28th offensive rating, 15th defensive rating, 12th bench plus or minus. They have a pretty underrated bench. And 13th strength of schedule could be worse, honestly. They should be feeling pretty fine with that. You know, they do have like an 8th seed advantage sort of, so it's not like they're in too much of danger of falling out. They need to make sure that they take care of business, though. Okay, it might be a little hard to just take care of business here. They've got Portland to start off. That's a win, I think, and also San Antonio, I think that's a win. But then New Orleans, I'm going to give them an L there, but they could definitely win that one. Then against Utah, I'm going to give them an L there, but they could win that one. And then OKC, who knows, that could be a win, but I'm going to give them an L there as well. Then against Toronto, an L, Boston, an L, and Milwaukee, an L. So I have them going 2-6, but they could realistically win 3 to 5 games and all that. So, yeah, honestly, they can do pretty well here. I think they will. I think they can definitely put up a fight here. I don't think they'll give up the 8th seed without a fight. That's gonna wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one when we talk about playoff teams.